JM in the AM, and we've got Rabbi David Sutton with us live via telephone, one of our favorite guests. He's out with a brand new book. It's entitled The Bitachon Haggadah, with a daily dose of preparation, finding peace and serenity in the story of Yetzias Mitzrayim, and we'll explain why we're doing this conversation so early, meaning so far in advance of Pesach, essentially really starting Purim time. This Haggadah becomes very, very relevant. It's relevant all year, but you get my point. And we'll explore that with Rabbi Sutton here at JM in the AM. Rabbi Sutton, a pleasure to welcome you back to JM in the AM.
Thank you. Good morning, Rabbi Nachum. Always a pleasure to be here.
I appreciate that. And how about helping me give a tremendous yasher koach to those who were able to get to Minyan on Monday morning? I was shocked, frankly, when I saw and heard how many people actually made it to shul with all the snow and ice in the New York, New Jersey area. And I would assume you as a rabbi were also pleasantly surprised by the number of people who showed up.
Yes. There's a pasuk in Tehillim, Beis Elohim nahalech beragesh. We will go to the house of God with ragesh, like regesh, with emotion. But the Mefarshim say Regesh stands for Ruach Geshem Shelag. We'll go to the house of God, whether there's wind, whether there's rain, or whether there's snow. So that is the Rugesh. That's the people that have passion and emotion about prayer will overcome all elements to get there.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. And again, a big yasher koach to everybody. It made an impression on a lot of families and on a lot of communities. Rabbi Sutton, it's a brand new Haggadah. We're having this conversation before Purim. Many people might find that unusual. Usually a Haggadah conversation would be closer to Pesach. But as I said, this Haggadah is extremely relevant starting around Purim time. Explain the format of this brand new Haggadah.
Okay, well, first of all, it shouldn't be such a surprise. The first halakha in Shulchan Aruch is Shloshim Yom Chodem L'Chag, 30 days before the holiday, we start preparing. You need 30 days. There's something in the air for those 30 days beforehand. The Chidah's grandfather, the Chesel Avram, says something's already happening in the higher spheres during these 30 days. And therefore, we thought it would be a good idea to start getting prepared, not just by cleaning your house, but getting prepared for the Seder night. It's not something you could just, wing and roll right into. This is the greatest presentation you're going to make of the year. When people have presentations, they're selling products. Let's say they want to make a presentation to Walmart or Target and they have their products. They don't just roll into the meeting. They put a lot of time and effort to get ready for that meeting. You're now going to be teaching your 4 sons. You're going to be ready for this important educational night. You better prepare your lessons and have lesson plans. And that's really what it's all about. My father-in-law, Rabbi Nosson Sherman, the general editor of ArtScroll, I was merited to be by many of his Siddharim, and he has Post-it notes throughout his Haggadah that he prepares for, although he's been doing this for decades. You can't just roll into the Seder night, and that's what we're trying to do. Besides, it's really a 2-in-1. Besides the actual commentary on Haggadah, which starts in the middle of this book, the first 30 lessons are lessons. You could do a daily dose for 30 days. You could wake up 2 weeks before, but there are lessons on the Haggadah. We'll get into a moment what specifically we dedicated these 30 lessons towards.
And it's interesting because, and you're so right, that the opportunity Seder night is gargantuan, and our brothers and sisters in Israel only have half the opportunity that we have in Chutz La'aretz because they have one Seder. But it's a big responsibility, and that's certainly well taken. The 30 days beforehand, we always think of, as you said, the cleaning and preparation. Got to make sure to figure out when to do the car, got to make sure to get the matzahs, et cetera, et cetera. But then on top of that, of course, the 30 days also has always meant to us going over the halachas, going over the actual laws, the rules of Pesach and the Seder and everything you need to do before Yontif. This is unique in that it's about Bitachon. It's about faith. It's about making sure our belief and our how invested we are in the one above and how invested he is in us does not wane during this time of year. In fact, I would argue, Rabbi Sutton, that many people really do spend too much time, and I say that in quotation marks, cleaning and preparing, and don't always remember the spiritual aspect of this holiday. Agreed or not?
100%, 100%. Rav Olber used to say something similar when it comes to Yom HaNaron, the high holiday season, where people like to do things. He said, we want to look for our essence, we want to build our sukkah, but something that's more spiritual, like tshuva, that's not really where we put our focus.
100%. I've never looked at Pesach as the centerpiece of a larger calendar. Again, the relationship with Purim for us, those of us who went to yeshiva, was limited to the fact that after Purim you start learning about Pesach. But here you speak about the month of Nisan, the 30 days of Pesach preparation, the Haggadah, of course, and Seder night, and then you even go ahead and talk about Sfiras HaOmer and Isru Chag, and it's sort of as if Pesach is a centerpiece to this entire time of the year. And just looking, if you will allow me, just looking at the second entry, this would be on day number 2 if somebody was following the first entry. Just looking at the first entry of Arami Oved Avi, right? We talk about those who are from Lavan, who are from Amalek, who wanted to destroy Judaism. The point that you make, and it is the second one. It's Amalek's wish. I apologize. It's Amalek's wish. It's the second entry. The point that you make, the takeaway, there's a takeaway in every one of these briefs about Bitachon. The takeaway you have is such an important one. You write on this special night, because what's the point? The point is that Amalek tries to destroy us and tries to veer us and tries to distract us every time something good is happening. You have a million good examples of that. On this special night, a night filled with opportunities for growth, don't allow the Yetzer Hara, right, symbolized by Amalek, to take you down, even if the children don't behave, the cousins don't all get along, the wine spills on the new clothes, the soup boils over, or you run out of maror. Take a deep breath and move on. Don't let Amalek catch you on the way. And what a lesson. I mean, I'm so glad you applied it to the Seder, but what a lesson it is for every single day of the year.
Yes, there are many lessons, and like I told you, you mentioned Arami Oved Avi.
Right.
Many people don't realize this, and this is a very important piece that I heard many times from Volva. We look at the Haggadah as an opportunity for some nice divrei Torah. We'll spend time on the Arba Banim contrasting the question of the Chacham to the question of the Rasha. We'll say, you can't go through a Seder without saying, Hare, I need Keden Shivim Shana, and say that Shmuel Nabi lived till 52 and 52 and 18.
Right.
Well, you get that. You can't get a Seder without that, right?
Right.
But that's not the job of the night. The job of the night is to tell the story. And when you finally get to the story of Arami Oved Avi, we check out. We're in a rush already. It's getting late. We got to make chatzos for Afikoman, and that's a mistake because the Rambam writes, and it's based on a Mishnah. You have to tell the story, and the Torah. Shortest version of the story is those 4 psukim of Arami Oved Avi, and the Baal HaGadah decided rather than making you read the entire Parshas Miketz Vayigash V'Yechi Shmos V'Eira Bo, we'll find the Cliff Notes, which are 4 psukim in Parshas Kisavon, and the story of Bikurim, that we come every year with our basket in our hand, and we go through our history. And that's what the Baal HaGadah chose as the minimal amount of information to fulfill your obligation to tell your children the story of Yetzias Mitzrayim. And like I said, since people blow through that, I felt that would be a good opportunity for 30 days before to get yourself very fluent in these 4 psukim, because it's not just 4 psukim. We break them down. V'yogar sham, stop. Let's go back to when the Sutton came into Paro and he says, we're only here, Logor Ba'aretz. There's many drushos. There's many elucidations that are going on in these 4 psukim. I mean, that's what you really have to be fluent in and proficient in when you get to the night of the Seder.
Oh, that's just brilliant. Rabbi Sutton is with us. The brand new Haggadah is entitled the Bitachon Haggadah, with a daily dose of preparation. And one of the things you have, and this is a theme throughout the entire book, throughout the entire Haggadah, one of the things you emphasize is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, our Father in heaven, takes care of us, takes care of each and every one of us. We are born, B-O-R-N-E, on his shoulders. Even when we don't see him or understand him, we are still being carried always. And I think this is a theme that you continue to emphasize throughout this entire Haggadah. I don't think we really view Pesach as the vehicle for that message, yet you point out how important it is to remember that this is such an important message of this upcoming holiday. Sometimes we forget that, even we're saying V'hi Sha'amda, and we forget how we're on the cusp of annihilation, and he saves us every time, and how no matter what is going on in our own personal lives, he is there and always watching over us. And I think that this is one of the main themes here. And again, am I right? Did you think going into this that there was not enough emphasis of Bitachon when it comes to the story of of Pesach?
Well, that's really a good point. That a lot of times we get involved in things and we lose the forest from the trees. We don't really see the general overarching picture. Like, what are we doing here? There's so many things going on. What are we supposed to be walking out of at the end of the Seder? And it's really a chizuk and emunah b'tachon. It's very interesting. One of the things that we talk about on the Seder night is we talk about Kriya Shema. It's Kriya Shema, Yimecha Yecha, Kol Yimecha, the days, the nights.
Right.
And the problem is, Kriya Shema, what does that have to do with the Seder night? We're not talking about the Zeichli Yetzias Mitzrayim, which we do 365 days a year, twice a day in our Kriya Shema. We're talking about the story on the night of the Seder. So what are we bringing Kriya Shema into the story? And one of these simple answers is that the goal of the Seder night is not just to have a one-night event. It's to strengthen our belief for every day of the year.
Right.
And therefore we're saying the purpose of the Seder night is that tomorrow your Kriya Shema is going to be better. And that's a litmus test. Like, did I get anything out of the Seder night? Has my Kriya Shema changed? Has my emunah b'tachon changed? If that didn't happen, then you're really missing out a little bit on the goal of what the Seder night was.
Wow, amazing. There's another thing that caught my eye. In one of the entries, you talk about as we prepare for Pesach, and again, this is going to start next week once Purim ends. As we prepare for Pesach and scrub our home, think of ways in which we could scrub our mindset. In what ways do you feel that the non-Jewish culture has permeated your life and your worldview? In what ways do you feel you need to seclude yourself in Goshen? Rabbi Sutton, this must be one of the for a rabbinic leader, it must be one of the greatest challenges of today is dealing with a congregation, our Jewish population that, unfortunately, we know about the assimilation. I'm not talking about, actual assimilation where people are living a non-Jewish life, but assimilation where so many of the concepts and ideas and practical things that are going on seep into our existence. Is there some practical rabbinic advice to give people when they try, I shouldn't say when they try, when they're wishing that they're able to, eliminate some of that mindset?
Well, what's important is really the whole story of Yetzias Mitzrayim started with Vatimolei ha'aretz osam. The land was filled with them, which simply means they procreated in a large number. But the Mefarshim explained Vatimolei ha'aretz osam means the land was filled with them. They were found everywhere. They were found in the theaters. They were found in the circuses. They left Goshen. And that's a rule one has to learn from history, otherwise he repeats it, which is that when you start assimilating, and again, like you said, assimilating doesn't mean literally assimilating, but assimilating your culture.
Right. Then
the next thing that happens is Vayarei Osanu. That's the change in gears from Pasuk 1 to Pasuk 2. What starts the Vayarei was the Timolei Aretz Osam. And that, again, history does repeat itself, that we see any time the Jewish people start assimilating, there will be reminders. And the fact that there's a surge of anti-Semitism across the world is because as a Jew assimilates and as a Jew forgets his culture, there are reminders. When that student's on college and he opens his locker and there's a swastika there, that's really a nice, kind reminder from God of saying, hey, you don't belong here. You belong in Goshen. This is not your place. So anti-Semitism, although we don't like it, it's really an ancient gift. Going back to Yaakov and Esav, the Mefarshim say that the reason why Hashem set it up, why did Hashem set it up that Yaakov even has to get the brachos in a roundabout way? It was his. He bought the Bechor, and the answer is because we want Esav to hate Yaakov. Why do we want Esav to hate Yaakov? Because we don't want to assimilate. We want to mix. And that's one of the reasons it says, Arami Obed Avi. You know how Lavan was destroying us? because he came and said, your sons are my sons, your daughters are my daughters, everything is mine. Lavan looked like he liked us. That's the real locker esakol. When we start feeling very comfortable and beloved by our host nation, that's where the trouble really starts.
Do you know how comfortable we feel right now in this area of the world?
Well,
even with all the anti-Semitism, do you know how comfortable we feel right now in this part of the world? I mean, you go to any public event, any major thing going on, and you see a lot of people from our community there who are fitting right in and participating. Yeah. And I'm not condemning that. I get, we could sit and debate from today till tomorrow about whether it's important or not to have outlets to go ahead and do things. But I think any observer would say that we've seeped into regular society to a great degree. And then on top of that, the examples you just gave, the anti-Semitism, for instance, yes, it does do a good job separating us. But when the entire world culture is on our phones and we don't have to go anywhere or do anything to actually be part of that whole system, you're facing a much, much bigger challenge.
Sure. Yes, absolutely.
It's hard.
A challenge, and yeah.
Can't leave this conversation without going over a couple of things from the Haggadah. You have we always talk about the four sons. You alluded to them just a moment ago. And we're not quite sure how to react to the ones that don't exactly fit in. And you have a title to one of your segments here when it comes to the Arba Banim that says, know your audience. So what is the lesson, Rabbi Sutton? How does one deal with those who are not exactly the way they'd prefer them to be?
Well, there are different, levels of that. The most extreme is Haka Eshino. We hope that we don't have any of those people at our Seder to that extreme that we actually have to knock their teeth out. But like we said, know your audience means that sometimes you need a softer touch. You have to know where it's coming from. One of the things they talk about the Russia is the Russia doesn't say he asks, he says, because the Russia is not really interested in an answer. He's just there to taunt. He's there just to attack. He's not looking for the answer. And a lot of times you have to understand, what is really the question? What's really bothering the person when you ask that question? Quite often it's not what they say. There's something lying under there, and you have to really peel away what's bothering them with these questions. And quite often it's something that doesn't seem like what's on the surface. There's something deeper than that, and you have to try to find what's the root of the problem, which again is not an easy job. But the important physics on this is that on the night of the Seder, every father has a special God-endowed power that he can turn his children around by speaking Emunah. And that's one of the reasons it says after the story of the Russia in the Torah, it says they bowed down on Basuras Habanim. They bowed down. Hold on, you just told me out of a Russia. And one of the ways they explain this, Keneged Arba Banim Dibber Torah, is there's a Torah for every one of the four sons. And yes, you can, on the Seder night, lift them all up and pick them up and find, what's the good inside of them and what's the bad inside of them.
Amazing. And then Vihisha Amda, you start that segment by saying we are a miracle. And sometimes people forget this. As much as we say Vihisha Amda, know that in every generation there are those who are trying to destroy us. You don't have to go past the news of the day to understand that. I actually heard the Prime Minister of Israel say this yesterday. He said it in one of his press conferences, that we have to acknowledge the fact that it is miraculous that a people like us, who is so often, again, on the cusp of annihilation, is able to survive each time. And obviously, the credit goes to the one above. What are your thoughts about Vihisha Amda during an era like this?
Well, it's pretty obvious, like you said. We don't need a Vihisha Amda. But one of the reasons why Vihisha Amda says go out and learn from love, and like I said before, is that we don't realize who's out to get us. And we don't say, go look at Esav, because Esav was obvious. Lavan was the chiddush, so to say. He's the father-in-law. Even he is out to get you. And that's why when you say Vihisha Amda, you think, okay, who's the Vihisha Amda? It's Iran, it's Iraq. The friendly ones are, I'm okay with them. They're good. But part of Vihisha Amda is to realize that really we're alone. we're one nation among 70 wolves, and the only thing that's saving us is the Gadol Haroa. We have a great shepherd. It doesn't say, well, some of those sheep are really nice. No, it's like they say, a wolf in lamb's clothing. Yeah. They might look like, oh, there's some lambs coming around here, but they're really 70 wolves. There's no lambs in there.
Oh, such an important point. The Haggadah is called the Bitachon Haggadah with a daily dose of preparation. It really begins now, right after Purim, to follow along each day. It's written by Rabbi David Sutton, finding peace and serenity in the story of Yetzias Mitzrayim. And one of the takeaways you write, Pesach is inching closer and the pressure is on. No matter what is taking place in your life, remind yourself, Hashem runs the world. And this is, to me, the thread throughout this entire Haggadah, Rabbi Sutton, that we must keep in mind that every single step of the way he is running the world, and we must put all of our faith, all of our anticipation in his hands, Kaviyachol, and understand that he's in control of everything.
That's the lesson. You got to just, it's a daily lesson. It's really the concept of daily dose is really our whole life. Every single day, Shema Yisrael. Yesterday Shema Yisrael doesn't help for today. Every single day I need to get another dose of it. The reason is because the whole world is against that. Remember many years ago I lived in Eretz Yisrael. I lived across the street from Mar Samech. This goes back 40 years ago. I lived across the street from Mar Samech. I once had a guest that was in the advertising industry. I always had a question that bothered me. How come Coke keeps on advertising? Who doesn't know about Coca-Cola? What do you have to keep advertising for? And he gave me 3 reasons. He said one reason is because Pepsi is advertising on the other side. So if you don't advertise, the competition is going to overdo you. Yeah. The second reason was that there's always an emerging market of new people there, and we have to get them in. And the third reason is people are fickle, and they forget. So you have to keep reminding them. And those to me was 3 very important reasons that you can apply as well in our lives, because we're really advertisers. Rabbi Yehuda said a beautiful shot. It's really a shot on Shabbos on Kiddush, but it actually, Kiddush is also, it reminds us of Yetzias Mitzrayim, as he says, Zeichel Yetzias Mitzrayim, Zeichel Ma'aseh Bereishis. It says, whoever keeps Shabbos is a partner with God in creation. Because when we partner with God in creation was, thousands of years ago. You can't say, hey, I want to become a partner with Bill Gates and Microsoft. It's too late. The company took off already. And he answers with a mashal of 3 brothers have a business. One of them is in development. He goes to China and makes the products. The other one's in sales. He goes around selling the product. The third one, he's in advertising. And they start off the company small and making money, and everyone's splitting it 3 ways. Finally, they're very successful, $30 million a year, and we're splitting it $10 million each. And the 2 brothers say one day, hey, I'm flying to China making the product. You're selling the product. What's our third brother doing? He's not doing anything. We got to cut his salary. They cut his salary. He becomes disgruntled. He does less of the job. And sure enough, the sales start dropping. They realize, hey, we need advertising. And to that, Rabbi Ades says that Hashem has a wonderful business running. He's development. He's got sales. He doesn't have advertising. We're in charge of advertising. And every Friday night when we say Kiddush, we're advertising. He created the world. He is supervising the world, as we know from Yetzias Mitzrayim, and therefore we become a partner. We're part of it. And that's what we have to do. We have to constantly advertise because the forces in the world are constantly going the other way. So it's a constant job every single day because there's Pepsi's advertising out there, and if you don't come back with Coke, you're going to lose the market.
Phenomenal. Did you enjoy writing the Haggadah? You and I have spoken in the past about projects and how you have to immerse yourself in it. And I always joke about the one who writes about Eicha. How even during Purim they're focused on the Churban Beis Hamikdash because of the work they're doing. There seems to be a very positive and satisfying aspect to this Haggadah. Did you enjoy writing it?
For sure. It was the challenge really was to me is, I've done the Seder in the past.
Right.
But to try to find a Bitachon Emunah lens on every single piece, on every message, on Yachatz, on Nirtza, it was a job. And it was a nice challenge. Baruch Hashem, I was able to find the connection to Emunah Bitachon throughout everything. Karpas, Mar, every one of the 15 Simanim have a Emunah Bitachon connection. And besides the commentary on the Haggadah, we also have the Simonim and connect them to Bitachon as well.
Right. Amazing. Well, the one above is obviously a great help to you, I'm sure.
Again, we have to be thankful for that.
You can't deny that if you just wrote the Bitachon Haggadah. he definitely helped you along. I take this opportunity, Rabbi Sutton, to wish you a Chag Purim Sameach, and of course a Chag Kosher Sameach with all the upcoming holidays. And I'm sure that everyone's Adar and Nisan, and then their Seder will be enhanced by your new Haggadah. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, before I say goodbye, Rabbi Nachum, I always have to have a shout out to my neighbor, Judy Landing, who's actually recovering from a surgery. We wish her a foolish layman. She should come back to herself and once again be a guest at our Shabbos table.
Amen. Thank you so much for that. She's the best. Thank you so much for that. Rabbi David Sutton, everybody, go get the book. Don't have to go anywhere. You can do it from your computer. Go to ArtScroll.com. Make sure to use promo code radio. Rabbi Sutton's Haggadah is entitled the Bitachon Haggadah with a daily dose of preparation. Rabbi David Sutton, go to ArtScroll.com. Make sure to use promo code radio. More coming up. It is a Wednesday morning edition of JM in the AM.